Hello there, welcome back to another episode of Strife's Talking Points, and today I'm going to try and do one big story. Done some research on it, as you can clearly see if you look up there at the tabs. It is going to basically do a, don't even call it a debunk, it's like the counter argument to last week tonight with John Oliver, and it's going through his impeachment show where he provides a bunch of information basically all skewed, and then of course he tries to infuse some jokes. I have to be very honest, John Oliver was one of my favorite parts of the old Daily Show, and as he's moved to HBO, I've become less and less of a fan because he has truly become a partisan actor, kind of going after a certain type of viewership, and I'll kind of show part of the viewership issue here in a little bit. But as always, feel free to like, share, comment on the video. Also, you can dislike the video if that's what you choose. I'm not in charge of you. I'm just trying to have a conversation and keep people talking, get people thinking. I myself always line up kind of in the center. I am what used to be a standard Democrat. Now I'm listed more conservative because as the parties have shifted, I've kind of stayed still. Most of my values are kind of where they have been for decades now. So here we go. Just going to kind of start off right at the very beginning with his intro piece.
Today's impeachment. It's one of the most consequential decisions a legislature can make, but more importantly, it's...
Now, he's been discussing impeachment. Now, he refers to it as a hot topic these days. Impeachment has been a hot topic now since pre-election of Donald Trump. They were talking about the Russia investigation and such before any of this ever happened. And I just want to show you, we're 25 seconds in. Of course, he makes the first obligatory joke. Then he goes for the second thing, which is this
As this oddly upbeat...
They recently died happily after being led to believe President Donald Trump was impeached.
Now, right there, part of the hysteria we have going on right now, and I mean, it is honest hysteria. Two men were, quote-unquote, died happily because they had been led to believe that Donald Trump, the President of the United States, had been impeached. We told him the process to impeach Donald Trump has begun so he could rest in peace. That is some pretty scary stuff there to think of, that in order for you to die happily, in order for you to go on, and you're at the end of your life, you're so upset about an elected official that you can't rest. And I do have this information here. This is from the Daily Caller. This is just my little clip in there. Study, Trump received 90% negative coverage in 2018. They kind of go through it. You can find this on your own. The Trump administration was by far the media's favorite story of the year, accounting for 28% of their airtime. And Trump-related stories, the media chose to most often focus on anything related to the allegations of Russia collusion. A storyline which now has been essentially completely debunked, even by their own channels. They no longer discuss collusion. They only discuss the possibility of obstruction and how obstruction will end the presidency. And this right here is clearly a more partisan site. However, I just want to, I saw this myself and I just couldn't believe it. Russia collusion investigation. 858 minutes, and this is ABC, CBS, and NBC. 98% negative. Immigration border policies. 643, 94% negative. Kavanaugh Supreme Court battle. 435 minutes, 84% negative. North Korean nuclear showdown. 410 minutes, 80% negative. Michael Cohen hush money investigation. 341 minutes, 99% negative. That is a big breakdown, and you see the trust in mass media is slowly fading away overall. You have a couple of spikes here and there, and this came out, I believe, in January. This came out before the actual fallout over the Russia collusion narrative, when basically Mueller came out and said there was no evidence that was there. And this is the story. These two men died 2 years ago now, and this was the story they're grandchildren decided to tell them. And this is what he's referenced. And I do feel very bad for these men, that they were so enwrapped in this that this is how they had to be put down. They're put to rest peacefully. Now, he's going to talk here briefly about Rashida Tlaib.
Have gone even further.
We're going to go in there, we're going to impeach them.
Now, she uses a bad word there. Very aggressive. And I had to look this up of where she was. This was something she gave. This is from an article from the Daily Beast. Rashida Tlaib is actually giving a speech, speaking at a reception for Move On campaign on Thursday night. The Michigan Democrat recalled a conversation she had with her son. She quoted her book by saying, "Look, Mama, you won. Bullies don't win." Now, Rashida Tlaib is sort of a bully in reality if you listen to what she says and does. Overall, not a big fan of her. However, she's not my congressperson, so it doesn't affect me a whole lot because, there are hundreds of them. Now, Move On, currently MoveOn.org, is an American progressive public policy advocacy group and a political action committee formed in 1998 in response to the impeachment of Bill Clinton by the U.S. House of Representatives. Move On has raised millions of dollars for left-wing liberal socialist candidates in the U.S. It also runs a petition website similar to change.org. Now, here we go. Move On was started as an email group, moveon.org, blah, blah, blah. Where is it here? They started by passing a petition around asking Congress to censure President Clinton and move on to pressing issues facing the nation, as opposed to impeaching him. The exact opposite of what they're trying to do now. Clinton was actually found to have lied to a grand jury, to federal investigators, about inappropriate things that happened in his office with a member of his staff. And, of course, that went all the way up to impeachment, where it, as Wikipedia shows here, the impeachment vote, 67 guilty votes are necessary for a conviction. It was 45 to 55 and then 50 to 50 on the two various charges. And it fell apart. However, that's the Rashida Tlaib thing here. He uses her as a reference as to why they should do it. And then we're going to skip ahead a minute.
Impeachment idea. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi has repeatedly attempted to apply the brakes to an impeachment inquiry, claiming the country is not behind it, and that in fact they barely understand what it actually means.
Now I'm going to go forward there with this. This is the Hidden Tribes of America, the U.S. study, where they find that progressive activists, these people that are in media, pretty much your Hollywood actors, your news and media people you see on CNN, ABC, John Oliver would fall into this. I'm sure a lot of the executives and people at HBO and these other media companies all fall into this progressive activist group. Progressive activists. 8% of the population are deeply concerned with issues concerning equity, fairness, and America's direction today. They tend to be more secular, cosmopolitan, and highly engaged with social media, which is why they more or less kind of dominate the conversations you see on Facebook, Twitter, and these other places, and even in media, because this is where they live. This is where their lives are. They're urban city dwellers, and that's where they go. And then you'll notice they only account for about 8%. And these are the far left activists. They are actively trying to push their agendas. And a lot of them have 180'd from where they used to be, because if it's against their story, they are definitely going to attack it. And you'll see that the majority of people are in this exhausted section here. Traditional liberals who do not tend to be cautious, rational, idealistic. They value tolerance and compromise. Not something you see out of I don't even know if the progressive is the right way to. These are the far left activists. They place great faith in institutions, and right now you're seeing the faith in institutions stripped down by this progressive activist group. Passive liberals tend to feel isolated from their communities. They are insecure in their beliefs and try to avoid political conversations. Because if you get involved in a political conversation, you get attacked. And then you have the disengaged, moderates, traditional conservatives, devoted conservatives. You'll notice here that traditional conservatives are the same quantity of people as progressive activists and traditional liberals. They amount to the same group as far as being 19%. So you see that even though we're told that this tiny percentage of people are against this progressive activism, these things, even their own party breaking down here where these people are trying to avoid, are insecure and trying to avoid conversations because they don't want to be attacked, from here over are completely separated from this top 19%. And even these 11% here, with faith in how the institutions and how the nation works and how we drive forward, are all falling apart. But this is the thing they want to go, and Nancy Pelosi saying there's not the support you think. It's all in this bubble.
Do you know most people think that impeachment means you're out of office? Did you ever get that feeling, or are you just in the bubble here?
Now, the bubble here, she's referring to the progressive activists, this far left idea where just because you say something and you post it on Twitter or it runs in a news story, that's true and it's over, it's done. It's not how life is. That's how nothing in this country has worked for decades, centuries.
They think that you get impeached, you're gone. And that is completely not true. It's not the means to the end that people think. All you do, vote to impeach.
And that's how it would work. As you can see with where Clinton was, even though he was voted to impeach by the House, as soon as it went to the Senate where the trial is held, didn't happen. Here's a breakdown of how it looks now. 45 Democrats in the Senate, 53 Republicans. And I believe you could get almost every Democrat to vote just because they would vote along party lines. And if you've been watching any voting on C-SPAN the last couple days, months, you see that it's generally all partisan votes. So how would they be able to get 22 Republicans, 20 if they got these two independents over there, even though with 235 votes, they could break the 218 threshold and get the impeachment process started, where it would go into the Senate for trial, and that's where it would basically end in my current beliefs. Going to skip forward a little bit more to his next main point.
As Nancy Pelosi just said, impeachment in no way guarantees a president's removal from office. In fact, no president has ever actually been removed through this process.
Now, most people don't know that. They think that Nixon was impeached and he was removed from office. Nixon resigned.
Two presidents have been impeached, Clinton and Johnson.
And Clinton had actual perjury, obstruction of justice, were actually his charges. He did those two things. It was proven he did those two things, and you can still go back to the vote. Didn't happen. Was not impeached, was allowed to continue office, and this was one of the breaking points for that Republican Congress back then. It actually broke them up because they couldn't force the issue through.
But remained in office, and Nixon actually resigned on his own before the House could finish impeaching him.
So there you go. Nixon got out while the getting was good, and that was it. Now here we go to the next point.
But that is not the end. Found impeachment representatives, during which a committee investigates and holds hearings into a president's conduct. And if a majority decides they found impeachable offenses, they vote to impeach.
Now that's the 218. There are 435 members, so half of that Democrats could move. At one point in the episode, he's talking about there are 63 current Democratic senators or Congress people, representatives who are willing to do impeachment, which is about 26% of total. Now that does push them almost to halfway to start the process. Now, by no means does starting the process, as he said himself, mean it's going to happen. It's just we can start the process and pass it off to the next higher level, at which time I'm assuming nothing would happen whatsoever. Moving on to his next big point, because he does like to throw in a lot of little stuff here. And like I said, I used to find him very funny. However, not so much anymore. Moving forward.
Didn't stop there, because a second instance was really serious about. But the potential obstruction didn't stop there, because a second instance...
Now, here's the obstruction case. Now, I've been looking this up, trying to understand as much as I can on obstruction. This is from Merriam-Webster. The crime or act of willfully interfering with the process of justice and law, especially by influencing, threatening, harming, or impeding a witness, potential witnesses, jurors, judicial or legal officer, or by furnishing false information and otherwise impeding an investigation or legal process. Now, to my knowledge, all obstruction, and I've been looking for this about it, is required there to be some type of underlying stuff. Oh, this was information I found on Nancy Pelosi, her and her district. This just comes up if you search Nancy Pelosi. It's the poop maps. She is the Congress lady for San Francisco, an area which is, unfortunately, as most of California, is starting to fall apart under the weight of the system there. That's just, I don't know, it's just something I really did enjoy. And now here we go. What you know about obstruction. Now they go over it again. Generally, any act or intended that is intended to interfere with the administration of justice may constitute obstruction of justice. There are many different kinds of obstruction of justice that are covered by different federal and state statutes. For example, separate federal statutes cover obstruction of court orders, obstruction of criminal investigations, obstruction of state and local laws, tampering or retaliating against witnesses, victims, and informants. Now, obstruction may consist of any attempt to hinder discovery, apprehension, conviction, or punishment of anyone who has committed a crime. Now, the crime part is where a lot of this conversation flows around. Now, with this here, one of the things it has in here, the definition of misleading conduct. Definition of misleading conduct is so general that it can use fit many different situations. For example, Whitewater Independent Counsel Kenneth Starr attempted to apply obstruction statutes very broadly in his investigation of President Clinton. Starr argued that Mr. Clinton committed obstruction of justice by denying to friends and subordinates that he engaged in intimate contact with Monica Lewinsky. According to Starr, this constituted misleading conduct obstruction because Mr. Clinton expected that his denials would be repeated to the grand jury that was investigating the relationship. Mr. Starr also prosecuted Susan McDougal for obstruction because she refused to testify before the grand jury about Mr. and Mrs. Clinton investment in Whitewater real estate project. McDougal was acquitted. Starr unsuccessfully prosecuted Julie Hott Steele for obstructing the Lewinsky investigation by claiming she lied to a grand jury about what and when the former White House volunteer Kathleen Wiley had told her concerning an alleged sexual advance by Mr. Clinton. Now, what they're showing there and how misleading conduct and this whole misdemeanors idea, anytime it goes out super broadly, it's going to fail. Because if there's criminal activities where you see a lot of obstruction and misleading conduct coming in, if there's a crime, an actual criminal activity that you're trying to cover up, you will then see obstruction of justice. Or directly lying to investigators, that's considered more of an obstruction of justice. If there's no crime there, then it's very difficult to have obstruction as the reasoning. And what you get from what a lot of these people are saying is the pivot now we have from collusion to obstruction.
Mueller cited came after news broke that Trump had tried to remove Mueller. And Trump tried to get McGahn to put out a statement denying it, and also said he wanted McGahn to write a letter to that effect for our records.
Now, I had to look this up. These are the 10 instances of possible obstruction in the Mueller report. And we're just going to run through these real quick because we're going to do a little bit on the one he says, because John Oliver just picks one and talks about that one. Includes the president's statement to the then FBI Director James Comey regarding the investigation of then National Security Advisor Michael Flynn. Trump told Comey, "I hope you can see a way of letting this go." Now, the answer is no, he couldn't. The Michael Flynn was investigated and was charged, not in connection with any of the Russia collusion activities. It was something from much earlier that was uncovered through the investigation. No direct ties to that. President's reaction to the continuing Russia investigation. Among the evidence is President telling White House counsel Don McGahn to stop Attorney Jeff Sessions from recusing himself from the Russia investigation, and Trump's subsequent anger at Sessions. Trump also contacted Comey and other intelligence agency leaders to ask them to push back publicly on the suggestion that Trump had any connection to the Russia election interference effort, which now, after the report is released, there is no connection between the two. So the president was trying to get them to say what we know 2 years later now, which doesn't seem very problem. Mueller's report says substantial evidence indicates that Trump's decision to fire Comey in May 2017 was a result from the FBI's directly unwillingness to say publicly that Trump was not personally under investigation. On the day after Trump fired Comey, the president told Russian officials that he had faced great pressure because of Russia. That's taken off. Yes, Comey was fired for a dozen reasons. One is was basically a partisan hack, which you've kind of seen now. He caused a lot of stir. He brought out that Clinton was under investigation, and then she wouldn't be charged. This was directly after brought up that they were opening the investigation up, then almost immediately said, no, we're not. This is after the tarmac meeting of his then boss and Bill Clinton on a private tarmac while the two planes were both land on an airfield. An amazing story. You can look that one up. Bill Clinton meets with the FBI on a tarmac. Just Google it. It's pretty good there. Appointment of special counsel and efforts to remove him. Trump reacted to the news of Mueller's appointment by telling his advisors the end of his presidency. We have seen unprecedented coverage of this, where thousands of minutes have been produced and put on network television on the three major networks, plus the thousands of articles through places like Daily Beast, Salon, Vox. All these news agencies have been pushing this Russian narrative for so long that it's very difficult to come back against it. Man, this video is going way longer than I wanted it to. And we're going to skip ahead just a bit. Sorry, I got a little sheet here. I record these straight through.
For nearly 2 months now, and he's failed to make much of an impression. When Justin Amash, the only House Republican to come out in favor of impeachment so far, held a town hall where he explained his decision.
Now, I watched part of this, and there was a lot of pushback from the audience during this. You can find these videos online. Justin Amash, just look it up. He's down there basically trying to parrot this narrative he's getting from the news media, because Democrats are telling him, and most mainstream sources are telling him, this is what people want. This is what they'll respond to. And he got quite a bit of pushback during that meeting from his own constituents over that. And they're going to play this one clip that I've seen 36 times now.
At least one of his attendees was genuinely shocked to hear that Trump might have done anything wrong.
Now, look at that look. He's playing you up for a fool. He wants you to agree with him. He wants you to say, oh, no, really?
I was surprised to hear there was anything negative in the Mueller report at all about President Trump. I hadn't heard that before, and I mainly listened to conservative news, and I hadn't heard anything negative about that report. And
mainly listened to conservative news, where she had listened to liberal news, she would have literally been having them tell her Trump was impeached on her deathbed. That's the difference between the two.
President Trump had been exonerated.
Yeah.
That's the exact opposite if you'd been listening to straight up liberal news the entire time. If you were on far left progressive sites, you'd have been told all the horrible things that Trump did. How the collusion narrative wasn't disproven, it just wasn't innocent, because you can't prove innocent in an illegal investigation, and that now they're moving on from collusion to obstruction because even though there was no crime committed, he didn't like the fact that he was being investigated, and it's been used by the media for thousands of minutes of coverage, hundreds of programs to show what he'd done.
That's what'll happen when you mainly listen to conservative news. It's like
The opposite of if you only listen to people like John Oliver and this 8% of progressives tell you this whole time how evil, how bad Trump is. And I just want to show you this here. This is from PJ Media. 50 plus journalists, politicians, celebrities, and grifters who peddled the Russia collusion hoax. This is from March. So this is right after it. Right there you see Jim Acosta, a man who's actually stated he's trying to sell his books. He's actually mad right now, today, because the book he wrote about his battle with Trump, he is supposed to be this liberal, this man who's standing up for TV and news and information, when he's already been outed as not investigating anything. He just talks. Mueller time didn't give him what he wanted. You see a deleted video here. Brian Selter, someone who's also always, through a single warrant, government agents can tap phones, text, emails, bank records, all of the subject of direct. Now, he's been talking about this for so long. You've had everyone involved in the Trump campaign, everyone involved in transition has been investigated. They've had to turn over documents. They've had to give up stuff. All these different things. You see here, Green Greenwald. CNN is leading the way, bashing BuzzFeed, but it's worth remembering CNN has had a humiliation, and at least as big and bad when they yelled at that Trump Jr. had advanced access to the WikiLeaks archive, all based on a wrong date. They removed all the segments from YouTube, but this still remains. They were faking news. Rachel Maddow, she is the ultimate conspiracy theorist. She has peddled Russian intervention, Russian fear, Russophobia. I don't know if there's such a word. This entire time. P-tape. This is something I heard. I actually heard this a couple of different times, and it's been just so sad. Rachel Maddow falling apart. Carl Benjamin, Trump, Russia, Comey. We have a president that is being closed in by the most effective special counsel, Bob Mueller. We have. There was no close-in. There was nothing. All these stories are everywhere. CNN, MSNBC, all these different CBS, CNBC, all these different Trumps have covered it. And then here's a story from Al Jazeera for March 30th. U.S. media reflect on their role in promoting the Russiagate conspiracy theory. The whole thing collapsed after this investigation. There was no collusion. All the indictments, everything involved, go through that. You can go find this Associated Press thing, 10 instances of possible obstruction in the Mueller case. Read through them. There was a man who was being investigated, and his campaign team was being investigated for possible crimes. That actually the crime started from opposition research. I don't know how to say this any clearer. From the Clinton campaign into the Republicans and into each other, that was paid for through a now U.S.-based company using British spies and subject foreign intelligence. All of which was rolled over and pushed forward and led to this overall investigation. Did Russia interfere with our election? Yes, there's clear evidence that it did. To the tone of, I believe, $5 million in spending, where I've done reports on this myself. Other nations spend hundreds of millions of dollars multiple nations spend a couple $100 million in the U.S. election every single time. Every 2 years, they dump this money in to get money back out. This whole story that John Oliver's got you running on about impeachment is one of these massive false flag campaigns that you just can't get away from. And I'm going to leave you with my last little bit here. Of course, OJ's back in the news.
Never going to read a 448-page legal document. That is presumably why Congress has been trying to have public hearings, to get that information out in a way that might resonate with people better.
Final thought. I looked this up, Mueller report in the news. There are 18 million results on this. The Hill, MSNBC, CNN, Real Clear Politics, AP News, MSNBC, Guardian, USA Today, Salon. That's just videos. If you read the news, 38 million results. You can read, see, hear everything about the Mueller report. It has permeated every single aspect of our news. It is not something people don't understand. I mean, there are just everywhere about the Mueller report. Everyone out there should have a good idea about most of what's going on, except for that people in that center part, the politically disengaged. Halfway through the John Oliver report, I'm cutting this video off because I've talked way too long, and it's time to start my day. So thank you all for listening. Please like, share, comment, subscribe. Feel free to dislike the video. Let me know what you're thinking about it. I just want to have a conversation with all of you, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you. Thank you.